Hello, everyone. This is actually take two. You might not see take one, take two, because Layla was having a little coughing fit. So I had to stop the live chat. So I'm going to start again. So here we are. Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Chat with Sue. And today the topic is, what can resource guarding teach us? So your dog may or may not display some kind of guarding behavior. And it's an interesting look at it, where it comes from, how we understand it, because there's many different theories about this. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what I understand, and then also look a little bit deeper at what it can teach us. So what it's about our dogs and how it can teach us. So this came about because I got an email. I'm on Sarah Whitehead. She's a lovely trainer in the UK. I'm on her mailing list, and she wrote about her young dog. She has a young Spitz, and she wrote about her young Spitz has guarding tendencies, likes to resource guard her things, and she evidently she'd found a plastic thing that it was a sharp plastic. I don't know what it looked like, straw kind of thing, but it had sharp ends on it, and she brought it to Sarah and sort of placed it right in front of her, to show her, to say, look what I've got. And Sarah glanced down at it, and straight away the young dog sort of put herself over it, as if to say, it's mine. And Sarah recognized the body language, and instead of grabbing to, go and get that, you can't have that, that's dangerous, even though she recognized that it was, she played it really cool, continued to type on her computer, which she was doing, and then gently got up, and after a few moments, got up and walked to the kitchen and went to the cookie jar. And of course, all the dogs in the family came running. They heard the cookie jar, so they went running. They got the cookies out the cookie jar, and they each got one. And then Sarah got a chew, so some kind of chew that each dog could have, and gave them each one. And they went to their beds and started chewing their their treat. And Sarah then gently walked over, picked up the plastic thing, and disposed of it really subtly, so that nobody saw. So I think a beautiful way of handling it, and certainly one that I would encourage people to do the same. So don't get into that battle. But what Sarah brought up, and what got me really contemplating about this, was she said, we as people, as humans, are also resource guarded. We tend to think that dogs are very guardy about their things. And yes, indeed, it is a trait of canines to guard things, sometimes for specific reasons, like a lack of resources when they were young. So perhaps there was too many pups and not enough food. Perhaps there was other dogs in the group, in the pack, that were that used to get to the resources first, and this little dog perhaps didn't get them so much. I also find it a lot in dogs that come from sort of the streeties, the ones that come from the Eastern European countries, that are rescued, that have been living on the street for a while. They tend to have a lot of resource guarding, and understandably why, right? Because resources are probably very few and far between. So it is a case of those specific dogs, having that tendency, because resources comes from a place of lack, a fear of not being enough of that around, especially when it comes to food. But there are lots of dogs who not necessarily guard food, but they guard their people, or they guard their territory, or they guard themselves, right? They guard themselves. They don't want other dogs coming into their space, for instance. So there's a lot of different ways to interpret guarding behavior. It doesn't always have to be around a resource as such. It could be any kind of guarding behaviors. But as Sarah points out, that we are, as a race, as a species, also very guardy, right? We tend to, this is mine, this is my house, my car, my family, my thing. So we also tend to have these guarding tendencies. Again, some, like in dogs, some is stronger than others, and it could be due to an experience. Could be that you came from you were brought up in a family or in a circumstance where there wasn't very much, and so you learn to treasure and guard what you do have, because it's well earned now, or something that you've put a lot of effort into getting. whatever that is. But there's, just recognizing that we too have a lot of guarding instincts in us for many reasons. And it may go below guarding things. And, like we say, territory and possessions. It may be guarding our heart, guarding our emotions, guarding our feelings, guarding our, building walls around us so that people don't come in. And so I thought this was just a great way for us to say, does your dog guard in some ways? And my dogs don't have necessarily aggressive guarding tendencies. They don't growl or snap or whatever when it's around food. But I've certainly noticed that Charlie is more guarded around people coming into his space as he gets slightly older and his pain levels increase. With all his arthritis, he starts to be a bit more guardy of people coming into his space. He also has become more guardy of our property, which he never used to do. He is very much guarding as to see who comes past and who comes in there. So it's interesting to see that it changes for him. His tendencies to have changed, his behavior has changed slightly over the years. But it's just if we look at it from a reflection, from a mirror point of view, what can we learn from that? What is our dog reflecting in us, perhaps? And I always laugh because Charlie has a great habit of stealing socks. He always has since he's a young puppy. And I eventually taught him to bring me the socks and put them in the washing machine or the wash basket, and he gets a treat for it. But he still does it. He still tends to steal my husband's socks and my son's socks, and he gets them really worked up. And this is almost on a daily basis. And I always have to giggle to myself and think, well, what do they need to learn? What are they reflecting to him about their guarding tendencies? So these are just subtle things, it doesn't have to be a lesson, but for me, it is an observation that you can learn and say, what am I guarding? Where am I guarding things in my life? Whether it be people, am I feeling jealous? Am I feeling, this is my stuff. This is, I'm right. I'm this, that guarding sort of tendency. Or are we guarding our emotions and our feelings? Are we guarding ourselves are we protecting ourselves in some way because we don't want to be vulnerable, or we don't want others to get to know our true, our true vulnerability, etc. So it's just an interesting thought. I believe that we can look at guarding tendencies in a different way. So it's tend to be seen as a negative trait in dogs, but I think it's a very common thing, and I think we only recognize it and only want to change it because we have it in ourselves. We have guarding tendencies ourselves in some level and somewhere in our life. So that's what my invitation is to you this week, is to look at, does your dog tend to guard anything at any level? Or how do you see guarding behavior? How do you judge guarding behavior in dogs, your own or other dogs? And is there something that you can learn? Is there something that it may be reflecting in you? And yeah, and just it's just interesting, right? We can do what we like with that information. We can ponder it. We can contemplate on it, or we can just, just take it for what it is. So that's my invitation to you, lovely people. Enjoy your week. I see Anna's on. Hi, Anna. I hope you have had a good start to your working week this week. I know you're back at work this week. So yes, everyone, go out there, enjoy your week, have a wonderful time, and perhaps this message may or may not speak to you. Have a wonderful one. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.